Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
It's Ed, and you're on Global TV Talk Show. This is a very active business unit of globalbusinessnews.net. Google Analytics has just released new numbers right up through 4th of July weekend of thousands. It's really amazing. So during June, it's almost 7,000 reader page views, audience page views. And that means if you are watching this show right now, that's a page view. And if you jump off and close down, then that's the end. But if you click on another talk show, or you want to go and look at our radio show or newspaper, well, that'll be another page view. So that's what all that means, 110,000 and climbing. And thank you very much for being on Global TV Talk Show. I'm delighted to welcome Lisa Patti, MS, CCC, SLP. Her company is called Accent C3, and it has to do with executive communications, speaking with clarity, keeping in mind culture, cultural influences. Lisa Patti is known for teaching executive voice. She is a coach to executives and business people and those who aspire to speak more clearly and with confidence.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how you doing?
Good.
I want to go a little bit deeper about your company, Accent 3.
C3.
Yeah. And this is about coaching executives on speech, speaking in public, speaking on camera, just like this. Yeah. And listening too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So how much is listening? 50%, or is it even more?
I mean, I don't know the exact percentage as far as what it entails, but the truth is, I mean, we can't communicate without listening. So if, the more we're tuning in, the better our answers are going to be, the better we're going to understand our listener, how to respond. So, if you start to look at and understand, let's say, the style of the speaker, if you start to look at, what they're doing, how they're answering, you could also tailor and understand what kind of responses they might need. So I think that's important, is especially when you're working in different cultures. Listening is going to become even greater, because you're going to need to see and understand, again, who your audience is and what they really need from you. So understanding that need is part of the problem, is part of solving the problem.
Got it. And so your involvement in Global Disc is certainly helpful, especially dealing with internationals. But right here in the US of A, in fact, in Manhattan, there's a lot of internationals. You don't have to go across the river. So how do you do that? How do you break the ice? How do you get people to break their own ice and change some of their habits?
So, I mean, going back to Global Disc, that sort of speaks to what I was talking about before, learning people's communication styles, raising awareness to your own communication style. And yes, I mean, my specialty is working with internationals, whether it be here in New York, people who are coming over on, so for executives, it's executives who are coming here for different business purposes. You know, they're on secondments or they're here for a short amount of time, or sometimes they're here to stay. And then I also work with a lot of startups that are looking to launch in the US. And I think that the most important thing for them is, again, you know, understanding and looking at the communication style that they have, you know, understanding what they're comfortable with, where their comfort zone is, and then understanding, you know, how they can flex that a little bit in order to address the listener. So what I usually do with people also is think about, let's say if they're getting ready to pitch or present, I mean, looking at the deck or the presentation that they're presenting. And I've been lately using something called Global English, where I'm really just looking at the, you know, a clean pitch. So let's say we get a pitch from marketing and it's very sexy and it has a lot of jargon and it's great. But if the person is not connecting to it for multiple reasons, whether they're just not familiar enough with the jargon in there, whether they're just not comfortable with the language yet, but they're fluent. You know, these are people who are used to delivering usually a pretty high level, but they can't connect to it. So how do you get your voice behind the text? How do you get your emotions behind the text? How do you get your personality behind what you're saying? So in order to break the ice, I think part of it is to help people feel comfortable enough to be themselves. You know, I think a lot of people, when they're coming into New York, they want to project a certain image, or they feel like they need to sound a certain way. There's a lot of pressure there on them, on themselves. And I think a lot of it is coming from them. You know, they think they need to sound a certain way. And it's not necessary. I think using key elements and strategies, they can connect and get that message across very clearly. So for them to break the ice, it's really, you know, a matter of them getting comfortable enough and understanding how to use some strategies to do that.
Interesting, isn't it? So it's different for women?
I don't know that it's different for women in the sense of, I mean, I think women have different challenges. Let's say I'll take the example of female founders. You know, depending on what country the female founder is coming from, maybe they're coming with different sets of challenges. I think the playing field is being leveled in the younger generations when it comes to tech. But I do think that you still see a lot less female founders in tech than you would males. So, you know, I think that for women in executive roles, as well as women in startup roles and in founder roles, I think, you know, having them, again, be comfortable with understand what their presence is and be comfortable with that, not feeling like, again, there's a lot of pressure on them to sound a specific way, but understanding how to use their own style in the best way possible. So, you know, whether it's maybe using voice, you know, some women have come to me and said, you know, I really feel like I sound very young, my voice is too high pitched, you know, I'm not commanding the room. You know, I'll work with them on, let's say, opening up the voice, but not so much changing the style. And I think, again, some people put pressure on themselves. And this could be no matter where you're from in the world, especially female executives will put pressure on themselves to communicate in a certain way. But then what happens is it might come off a little robotic, or maybe over punched, where it's, you know, too harsh, or maybe it's, you know, they're pulling back too much because maybe they're not comfortable with owning the questions or owning the room at that point. So, you know, I think that, again, women and men have some different challenges when it comes to communication, but I also know some extremely powerful women who are able to deliver in a specific way that, you know, really gets things done. So it really depends on the woman you're talking about. And sometimes it depends on the culture they're coming from and how used to that role of founder or face of the company that they're used to having. And then when they get to the US, they're engaging in that pretty quickly.
So let's talk about minutia here for a second. Let's just talk about a woman entrepreneur, a founder of a small company and with a good product. And this woman is the energy source, really. And she's from and lives in currently northern New Jersey, right? And a certain type, I'm sure you're getting a picture, and has worked in big companies and in small companies, mainly big companies, that are male dominated, all right? And she felt as if she was ignored or minimized, and she quit and started her own thing, okay? Now she's trying to sell stuff, right? She's trying to create revenue for the family and be a success. How is too general, I know, but just take a slice of that and say, this woman is going to be on Zoom now rather than in person, and she's going to have an opportunity to appeal to a buyer of whatever she's selling. And the buyer could be a mixed group of male and female to make a decision. So how does this woman, who's usually very aggressive and not really cutthroat, but really, really demanding and specific and aggressive, how should this person come across using this vehicle, Zoom?
Well, I think that when you're on any kind of an online medium, so if you're using video, like most people are right now, I think first of all, understanding the perception. So really getting a sense of how you're perceived by your audience, and that's going to come with some experience and some feedback. So I think that it's very important for people I always tell people to record themselves. And I think now more than ever, you can do that. Understanding how you're perceived. Again, sometimes we think we're coming off in a certain way, and our audience might perceive us in a very different way. Going back to the global disc, as you're thinking about talking to a very diverse audience, making sure that you add different elements. If you are someone who is very direct, and maybe she is that D style of a person, and that's her by nature, adding story, adding anecdotes, adding, facts and figures, making sure she's able to appeal in some parts of her presentation to the empathy or to the listener or to someone who might care about the issues in a different way. Giving people time to process the information as well. So making sure that, as you're presenting something, you're breaking it up, you're using pausing in a very specific way so that people can absorb the information, only because in this medium, if you go on and you don't stop for interaction, you don't stop for questions, you don't give people a chance to absorb information, you're not presenting in little bite-sized chunks. So what I usually tell people is, something that you're very comfortable with, is very easy to say quickly. And let's say in the Northeast of the United States, people do tend to speak quickly. It's cultural, people from New York City, Northern New Jersey, wherever in those regions, the speed of communication happens quite fast. So it's different than in even other parts of the US. But when you're dealing with a very diverse group of people from different countries and different parts of the US, again, you have to be mindful of not only how you're delivering, the words you're using, but then how you're connecting your voice to that. How direct is your tone? Do you need to pull it back a little bit and understand that maybe, some people might perceive it as too much or argumentative, or depending on, again, where your audience is, what your goal is and what your goal is for that audience. Do you want them to learn? Do you want to persuade them? What is the goal, for that interaction? And then using Zoom or using any kind of video medium, just understand that you're going to be amplified on that medium. It's all you. When you're in a room, there's a lot more body language, there's a lot more happening in the room. So the focus is on you. But when you're in a little box, your facial expression becomes very important. How you're even using hand gestures, I'd say, is very important. You don't want to sit too still. You don't want to become too blank, because again, you're front and center. So people are much closer to you, and it's also easier for people to check out. So being careful of that engagement is going to be really important.
Thank you for that in-depth.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a timely announcement.
Hi, I'm Sergei Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we are researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what will happen to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
So let's talk about communication about an issue. And let's just say this is not political, it's just business, about vaccines, okay? And of course, some people can't get it because of immune system or because of some real personal issues. But there's antidotes to that. They can get the whatever, something else, to just protect themselves and to protect others. But then there are those who don't want to hear this, and for whatever the reason. And these are the people who unfortunately are getting sick right now with this variant. And yet the government, meaning Biden, President Biden, is trying to convince people that, hey, you need this because the country needs you to be strong and participate. It has nothing to do with politics. It's all about public health. How does communication style get a message across to people who are almost instinctively non-believers or putting up barriers to take something in? This is a bad subject, isn't it?
That's a big ask. I had the answer to that, I think the U.S. would be in much better shape right now.
Well,
the truth is,
here's your microphone.
we're speaking in, so to speak, different languages in the United States right now, and I don't mean literally. I think
Yeah.
that people hear things and hear what they want to hear. They have some very deeply ingrained beliefs, and I mean, the thing is, if your belief system is so deeply ingrained, you're coming to the table with that already. So you're gonna be listening through that lens. You're gonna be listening through the lens of your own biases, and so it is very difficult to persuade people who are not sold on this, or maybe don't believe it because they don't believe in the science or whatever it is behind it, for whatever their reasons are. And we could obviously argue a thousand things as to why someone should or shouldn't. And they'll have 1,000 counter arguments. It's a very hard question to answer because, again, I think the US is struggling with this. I think the US right now is a very divided country, and how the vaccine rollout is also how people believe in many other political issues. There's just a very clear division on beliefs right now. So getting people to believe through communication style, yes, it's going to be very important. You saw it in many people's campaigns. You're speaking to your audience, right? Like you use a language and a communication style that is going to appeal to the audience that you're speaking with at that moment. And if you are not doing that, if you're not managing to connect or communicate in a way that appeals to that audience, and this could be a global audience as well as a local audience, sometimes people will feel alienated. They might feel like, okay, you don't get them at all. Or, again, they could check out, especially if this is the medium that everybody's using right now to listen to these types of, presentations, campaign speeches, whatever it is. If you're not live, you're in this type of a medium. So you could easily shut your camera off, walk around your house and listen to these things. If nothing captures you, you're not going to listen. So it's a really hard thing because, a skilled politician or a skilled person will be able to adjust their communication style while staying true to their message. And I think they'll understand what people need. Again, whether it's narrative, whether it's appealing to the problem that whatever the person is going through is the problem that needs to be solved. So maybe going from that lens of, what's the problem that these people are facing? What might be the roadblock here? And, why is that a roadblock? How could we change that in order to make it more attractive? And now, we're seeing all these little perks, but that's not necessarily working. Like, oh, you get a free, golf club or baseball cap or whatever it is. I don't know if that's really going to work. I think people are just grabbing at straws right now. But it's a hard one because, again, you really need to appeal to the language of the person, the way people communicate, but also the needs and the problems of those people. And it's going to be very different. The US is behaving very much like multiple countries now, and it is multiple countries, in my opinion. As you go across the United States, we're very much different, almost different countries and cultures that are speaking the same language, and we might happen to be in the same country, but our belief systems, our culture is very different. So again, finding people who appeal to all of those different beliefs is a challenge, and I don't envy whoever has to do this, because it is going to be this vaccine rollout and probably many issues in the future are going to continue. You're going to continue to see the gap in the United States until someone could come and understand how to deliver very differently to different groups. And then, what happens? They might be accused of not being authentic or, flip-flopping in the way so it's a hard one with politics. I think that it's such a sticky subject.
Well, thank you for that. And I would just add that to the pile of good thinking about difficult topics. So have you been to a Broadway show in the last week?
No, I would love to, but I haven't been to a Broadway show since pre-pandemic. And it is coming back, but it is something where, not everybody's comfortable yet being in a theater. And if you've been in New York City theaters, anybody who's been in one, they're small. It's tiny. The seats are very close together. They're old theaters. They're beautiful, absolutely stunning. They're one of my favorite things to do. I grew up in New York City, and, even as a kid, my mom would take me 1 or 2 times a year, always around Christmas time, or, we would try to get a ticket for something. So it's always a treat. And, when you go, it's magical, but Broadway was hit really hard because of the way a theater functions. So things are coming back, but I know some of the shows are just opening up. You know, a lot of the shows said that it wasn't worth opening until they could hit full capacity because of the economics behind putting on a Broadway production. And, you know, I think people have the misconception that actors, you know, are paid all this money and they're doing, you know, and Broadway actors really not. So, I mean, it's a passion and it's a love, and the actors got hit pretty hard during the pandemic. You know, it was very difficult for people. So hopefully it'll come back very, very soon and people start feeling more comfortable. I think more and more people are starting to feel more comfortable. There are a lot of people who are vaccinated in New York. The rates, just like on the West Coast, are pretty low at this point. I think we're below 1% in New York. So hopefully you'll see theater coming back soon.
Yeah, it's like a miracle.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lisa, Patti, tell me what you think is going to happen inside a company in Manhattan or some other place, doesn't matter, but Manhattan would be a good one, where things are just stacked up high. People getting into elevators or going into an office. You know, I've read and heard about Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs saying, you want to get paid a New York wage, you got to work in New York style. Come back now. And then there's other companies that say, we don't want you here, you know.
Again, it's a hard question. And I do think communication is important in all of this. You know, how people are opening up channels of communication. I think companies are very aware that they need to really open up the lines of communication between their employees and the employers. But I mean, according to a lot of companies and depending on the sector, it looks like some sectors, you know, productivity is much lower than others. I think if you're a tech company and you're set up to be virtual, then it's not that big of a difference. But if you're a finance company, you know, then it's about a bit different. And I think there is going to be I think there's going to be people who want to go into the office. I am someone who actually really likes going in and, you know, going in and interacting with people in person. Some people have found that they like to be at home. I think there's just going to be a big difference when everybody starts to go back. For the people who are staying at home, you know, how is it, you know, the relationships that you form in person are always going to be different than the relationships you form like this, you know, the medium that we're on right now. And, you know, what happens when you close the computer and you walk away and you're standing next to someone? Yeah, you can go get a drink or go get a coffee, or, you know, you can just have a chat. And that tends to bring you closer to people in a different way than when you participate like this. So I think that's where you're going to see some big differences is, you know, again, communication has to be very clear in I think maybe how they are structuring the meetings. And I know that they're, you know, probably trying to input more and more. I know clients that I have that are executives that are pulling people back in, you know, they're really trying to be very aggressive about speaking to and including, you know, the employees as far as coming in. But I do think that at some point people are going to have to go in. I don't know, again, which industry is demanding it more, but I see it more and more. I see, you know, the streets are getting more and more busy. The trains are getting busier. You see people with work clothes on again. So it's nice, actually. It's actually, I missed it. I mean, New York it went through a lot, and it's a tough thing to look at empty streets in Manhattan, or even just, you know, a bunch of people, you know, very casually walking their dog in, you know, their yoga clothes, but you're not seeing like the business attire that you're used to. And I actually missed some of it. I was in Manhattan yesterday and I saw people, you know, starting to do it, and it was nice. It was kind of nice to see. I mean, I miss it. Like I said, I missed the buzz of it. I grew up here, and part of the reason I love it is because of that pulse that Manhattan does have, and it's, you know, fairly unique to the city. So I'm glad to see some of it coming back.
So are you in Brooklyn?
I am in Brooklyn, yes.
Yeah, okay. So I thank you for being our guest today on Global TV Talk Show. It's a nice picture, a nice portrayal, and a nice communication to hear what's going on from a New Yorker's point of view.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.